Creating a podcast takes a lot of time and money. So I want to take a moment to say thank you so much with all my heart to the following homies who have donated to help keep the show free to air for everyone to enjoy. If you have found value from this podcast, please consider donating at www.eugeniekruger.com and click the donate button at the top. Every donation of $10 and over will get you a shout out on the next episode. So a huge thank you to Holistic Health Macedon Rangers, Roma Rosborough, Amber Bees, Chris Ahern, and Natasha Andreu. Thank you, special homies, for helping to keep this podcast free to air. You rock. Today, we speak with Ellen Kramer, Director and Founder of the College of Practical Homeopathy in London. The College of Practical Homeopathy teaches a fully integrated and holistic homeopathy course that combines the natural treatments of herbs, diet and nutrition, supplements, flower essences, bowel nosos, meditative provings, and tissue salts to ensure their graduates become well-rounded and confident practitioners. I really loved Ellen's message today about how we all have the power within ourselves to heal, and sharing her own journey of how homeopathy has given her back her health. To learn more about the College of Practical Homeopathy, visit www.thecph.co.uk. Enjoy the episode.
Welcome to the Homeopathy Hangout, where we discuss all things homeopathy from around the world. And now my mum and your host, Eugenie Kruger.
Hello, homies, and a very warm welcome to Homeopathy Hangouts. Today, we get to speak with Ellen Kramer, who is the principal and director and the founder of the courses currently presented at the College of Practical Homeopathy. Welcome to the show, Ellen.
Thank you very much for inviting me. I'm quite excited to be here to talk to a worldwide audience because you're well known right across the globe for homeopaths. So yeah, this is quite exciting.
Oh,
so
and
thank you very much for your invitation.
It's a pleasure, and a shout out to Mel Dupre, who is a past guest on the show who introduced the two of us. So thanks, Mel.
Let me do a little shout out to Mel. Hi, Mel, if you're listening. And I look forward to meeting up with you.
Oh, so I always ask my guests this at the start, Ellen. So what was your journey to homeopathy? How did homeopathy find you?
Well, I think I'm going to say this. Homeopathy saved my life. My health, when I got into homeopathy, was completely trashed. I had been taking steroids, antihistamines, and one day my husband just said to me, you know what, Ellen, it's not working. You're sicker than you've ever been before. And you've been going to the chest clinic for your asthma. Try and find an alternative. And I started to look for alternatives. I met different homeopaths on my journey. But the thing that turned me round was when I had my daughter and she had terrible earache. And the homeopath, I took her to see the homeopath. It was the first time I'd seen a homeopath. And she was looking in her book. And then she popped a pill in my daughter's mouth, which I know was chamomilla. She was screaming with earache. And suddenly this baby just went to sleep. And within about an hour, all this pus came out of her ears and she was normal again. And that really struck me as amazing. And I couldn't believe that I hadn't taken this system of medicine, that seriously. And that was the journey. I fell in love with homeopathy and I did my course not to become a homeopath whatsoever. I did it to heal myself because I knew there was something more that was going down in my health that I wasn't seeing. I couldn't seem to get myself out of the allergies, etc., etc. So I knew there was something else that I needed to learn. And my husband said to me, why do you want to study homeopathy? You don't have time. You've got 3 children. You're working full time. And I said, I'll do it for me and the family and take care of our health. And I did. And I started my journey and I loved it. I was getting great results. Everybody at work, because I did hair and makeup originally, and all the people at work would always come to me, especially when we went on location, and they'd ask for remedies, for sunburn, for this, for unruly children, kids with fevers. And I just gave them remedies. It wasn't until I got to college that I learned that the remedies don't always work. And that was very interesting because for me, they'd always worked. And I couldn't understand why they didn't work all the time. But I was so enthused on my training. I was a pain in the neck for the other students because I would ask so many questions. I really felt that I'd come home. And I'm usually very dyslexic with words, but for some bizarre reason, I could spell all the homeopathic remedies without a problem. I still can. Give me a remedy and I'll spell it correctly. But when it came to other things, I couldn't. So I felt like I'd come home and I loved it. So that's how it started, the enthusiasm.
Wow. Well, I won't make you spell Haliatus leucocephalus.
No.
Always have to go double check that one. So just tell us a little about the College of Practical Homeopathy. And what do you mean by practical homeopathy? Like, what's the ethos of the school?
The ethos of the school is practical application of homeopathy, and that's on various levels. So what we do is the training itself is not a conventional training in homeopathy. We see that patients are our teachers. They teach us homeopathy. And so we encourage our students to start taking cases as soon as possible so that they can start applying what they're learning. The way human beings learn is through experience. It's no point in listening to somebody telling you about things. You've actually got to go through the experience of learning. And the best teachers are your patients. Homeopathy is a very, very safe system of medicine. And we have been groomed to be afraid of the human body. So what we teach you is how to understand the language of the body, because the symptoms are the conversation the body's having. And why we're practical is not only do we teach you homeopathy, but we also teach you nutrition and herbs. And the most important thing is how you analyze a case, because the patient's symptoms are talking to you all the time. And you need to be able to understand what exactly is going on for the patient. So our case taking format guides you to ask the right questions, look at the timeline, look at how they got to sit in front of you and interpret what those symptoms mean. So I'm a person who is a great observer of people, of humans, because I love people. And you learn to be a detective. You want to know why the body is doing what it's doing. How did that happen? So what I did was I took Hahnemann's sixth organon and condensed it into one sentence, which is cause, effects, and obstacles to cure. Find the cause, remove the obstacles, and support the body to do what the body does best. The body is the healer. It's not the remedies that are healing. It's the patient. The remedies are signaling to the body to find balance. And when you get the context right, that's when you see the miracles of healing. So if the patient is malnourished, and most Westerners, if you want to see old homeopathy, the way homeopathy works on good constitutions, then you have to come and join me in rural Ghana when I go to Ghana, which is where I met Mel, but it's another story. When you're there, people are not as toxic. They're living close to the land. They're constitutionally intact. And you can they'll speak to you in remedy speak. They will tell you a remedy as they're talking to you, and you'll sit there and you'll think, well, that's Tox.
Oh, that must be so satisfying.
Oh, they're doing calc carb. My God, it's calc carb. They will do those remedies. And what I found when I graduated, that's what I was expecting to see. The reality was it wasn't like that at all. And it was only when I got to Ghana and started to use homeopathy there that I realized it was very different in the UK. And I then started working out what was the difference. And the difference was the constitution, because here with the stress, the toxicity people were being exposed to, and the fact that they were malnourished on a cellular level meant that you couldn't use the remedies in that way. That way of learning the remedies is very 19th century, because you can do that with a 19th century constitution, but you can't do that with a modern constitution who has been trashed and has inherited toxicity. So when you look at this from epigenetics, they say that if you take a drug, it can affect 4 generations later. And this is miasm. You know, the toxicity can have an impact on your great, great, great grandchildren. If you're childbearing age and you take a drug, that can have an impact. So this has been going on. This level of toxicity has been going on in the West for some time, and people haven't noticed it until we've got to a level of chronic disease. And you have to understand that. Where is this coming from? And once you get into cause, effects, and obstacles to cure, you start to ask patients the right questions. So if I'm seeing a teenager who's got endometriosis and she's 13, I know that that's not normal to the body. So I want to know where that's come from. I do know that synthetic hormones have this effect. So I want to know who was taking the hormones. So if the mother took, the contraceptive pill and the grandmother took the contraceptive pill, then I know what my underlying cause is. She may never have taken the pill, or she may have taken the pill for a short while, but I know my underlying cause, and I then have tools. So practical homeopathy gives you different methods or ways of prescribing homeopathy. Not one way, there are many ways, which is organ supports, detox therapeutics, classical prescribing, physical general prescribing. There are many ways to use your remedies. But if you're looking at cause and effect or the similum, what I've understood is symptom similarity does not get you the results you want. What you have to do, and this is why we use Murphy's repertory, is go back and look at the similar causation. That is really your similum. When you have your remedy and that remedy matches the causation of why the patient has got those symptoms, then you have your similum and it will work. But if you don't have the remedy with the right causation, so I can do my rep work and look at 3 different remedies, I would most probably choose the remedy that had the same causation as to why that patient was doing those symptoms. The symptoms of the conversation, the causation started that conversation. If you want to find the remedy that's going to help the patient, find the remedy that deals with that causation, and the body will do the rest of the work. So back to endometriosis in a teenager, 2 generations of synthetic hormones. Homeopathy has the tools. No other system of medicine has the tools to detox 2 generations of toxicity. And when you know how to analyze your case, you can get to the root cause of the problem and support your patient with organ supports, balancing the hormones. And this is where herbs and nutrition come in, because every drug you take mugs you of essential minerals and nutrients. And if you don't understand that as a practitioner, you're asking, when you give a remedy, you're asking the body to heal itself. But if it can't do that because it doesn't have the resources, then you have got to remove that obstacle by supporting the body to absorb the resources so it can begin its healing journey.
You've just given me a whole other way of looking at a case. It's like a paradigm shift almost. That's really interesting.
For homeopaths, this is a massive paradigm shift. And that's why we say we teach 21st century homeopathy. Most people are teaching 20th century homeopathy because they're focusing on the remedies to fix their patients. To me, that's very allopathic. And of course, it would be allopathic because the older homeopaths were all doctors. The thing with the older homeopaths is they didn't understand nutrition on a cellular level. Secondly, they didn't understand quantum energetics, that we're in a quantum energy field, and the remedies work as information from the quantum field. So you have to have a paradigm shift if you're working with energetic medicine. Take the body out of trauma, and guess what? If it has the resources, it is going to bring itself back into balance. And it's absolutely miraculous to watch. There's no incurable patients, just people who refuse to allow themselves to heal.
So do you rely quite heavily on the ailments from rubrics, where it's like ailments from abuse and ailments from...
Yeah. They're very important rubrics. And of course, once you understand your causation, you can get your rep work down to 4 main rubrics: the etiology, that's the causation, the mental emotional symptom that changed with that causation, any physical general symptoms. Now, the physical general symptoms to a homeopath is very, very important because they're having a conversation of what is really going on a cellular level. So when you're looking at cravings for foods, I mean, when I was a student, they had a craving for food. You just look for the remedy that fitted that craving. But actually, any cravings are the body trying to pull in the right nutrients into the cell so that it can do its job properly. So if a patient comes and they've got a craving for ice, I know straight away that they're anemic. If they've got a craving for salt, I know they're anemic. And I want to find out why they're anemic, what's going on in their lives. So the physical general symptoms, if a patient is cold or affected by different weather, this is a very important conversation, particularly the time modalities. So if the patient is waking up at 3 a.m. in the morning, then you know that in the case, there is a grief somewhere. And you can ask your patient, tell me about your grief.
That's interesting. In Chinese medicine, 3 a.m. is the lungs, right? And lungs are related to grief.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So we use the 5 elements as part of our observational tools and to translate the conversation. We want to know what organs this is what you're learning. You're learning to translate the language of the body, not to be afraid of it, but to understand it. We do timelines so that we can go back and see where the original trauma is, or if that trauma comes from the parent, the grandparents, it's been passed down. So you're wanting to look at toxicity. My suggestion is get fascinated and nosy about people. Find out, ask the questions, because it's like hunting down, where's this coming from? What's the cause? It's really fascinating. What is the cause of these symptoms? And when you understand that, then the next question is, what are my obstacles? And you can see that in the case. So if you're looking at the family history, both sides of the family, if everybody's had cancer, has your patient got a good constitution? No, they haven't. But if everybody died in old age, yes, they have. They're going to use the remedies well. And if it's a functional disorder that they've got, like high blood pressure, all you have to do is use the classical repertory to, focus on mental and emotionals, and you'll find your remedy. And you don't need to use a lot because you've assessed they've got a good constitution. There are no obstacles whatsoever blocking that you from actually, helping the body to heal itself. So again, practical homeopaths see the patient as the healer, not the remedies. It's a very, very big difference in being a practitioner.
I love the wording that you use. Even before we started recording, you were saying about we've been groomed to believe that the body can't heal itself. And I think if you give people that power in their hands, because I mean, health is the ultimate. If you've got health, you've got everything, right? No amount of money.
It's
I
your
mean, you look at
wealth.
somebody like Steve Jobs or whatever, they had all the money in the world, but, they died at, such a young age, really. And so nothing, health really is everything. So if you can make somebody believe that their body can't heal and they need something else to help their body to heal that they need to be reliant on for the rest of their life, then you really have, that you've taken their power away. So I think that's where homeopathy is so powerful, really giving people their power back.
Well, that was one of the first things I learned was when I was going to the chest clinic for my asthma, that I was powerless. And I remember the doctor saying to me, if you don't take your inhaler, you could have an asthma attack and die. So even when I was doing homeopathy and I was seeing a homeopath, I used to carry my inhaler in my bag for about 3 years, just in case I had an asthma attack and died on the spot. But my life was miserable. I was suffering so many side effects, but I didn't know they were side effects from the drugs. I've only learned now that they were, that they were the side effects of the drugs. It destroyed all my bioflora. I was anxious all the time and I would get depressed and have terrible mood swings, not knowing that it was actually from the steroids I was taking. And then I was acquiring more and more allergies as the drugs stripped me of all the magnesium. So I couldn't make diamine oxidase to deal with histamine in my diet. So I got more and more allergic to foods and more allergic to pollens and things like that. Now, in end of May, June, I can look at my elder tree with all its flowers and enjoy its beauty without itching my nose, scratching my eyes, sneezing and wheezing and wishing the summer would end. Now I look at the elder and I think, beautiful tree, I love your flowers. Thank you, thank you, thank you. You taught me so much. And you've also taught me that I am so healed because you do not bother me, flowers. Not at all. Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
You get your power back.
Absolutely. Oh, that's such a cool story. And you've been practicing for almost 28 years, and you also helped to set up the Center for Homeopathic Education, and then you've got your own school as well that you've had for, 25 years? Or how long have you had the...
Well, I bought CPH in 2003. Okay. So it's 21 years this September. And I totally changed it. And I remember saying to Robert, I get it. You were introducing new methods. And now I understand what you meant by practical homeopathy. But the problem he had was everybody who was teaching us had trained classically. So the practical idea was, it was just a theory because he didn't have the people who could deliver that practical aspect of it, which is learning different methods, etc. And so when I bought it, I decided to change it completely. And I was writing the lessons one weekend before the students came to do the course. I wrote all the lessons. My husband edited it, blood, sweat and tears. He'd send it back to me and said, this makes no sense what you're trying to say. And I'd go, but I'm trying to tell them this. He'd say, if I don't get it, no student on God's earth is going to get it. So make it simple, make it clear, and then they'll get it. And so we battled on in this way. And I said to Robert, this is what I was going to do. And he said, oh, you're going to make the students lazy. And I just said to him, look, why would I buy your college to repeat exactly what you did? It makes no sense to me. I've got to do this in my way. And if it fails, you can sit there and have a good old laugh. And I just carried on writing the lessons. And why did I do this? I did it because I wanted to be a master homeopath. So I did it for myself. A consequence of that is other people benefited. The clearer I got, the more they benefited. And now, once we went online, I'd say the online training is much better than when we were sitting in the classrooms, because on the online training, you can't move through your module unless you get it. And your online tutor will sit with you and support you so that you get it and you understand, and will encourage you to take cases. So it's like an apprenticeship. You have to experience the training, and it doesn't matter whether you're in Australia, New Zealand, Canada, Africa. We have students in South Africa, in West Africa, in the States, in Australia, Canada. It doesn't matter where you are. When you do our Zoom clinics and you're taking cases with somebody of experience who's been through the training themselves, so you have to go through the training yourself to be a tutor, because otherwise you won't know how to analyze the case and support the students to go through it. You see, so this is not a conventional training where the lecturer comes in, throws information at the students, then you've got to figure it out. Well, when I was at college, that's what they did. And it took me 7 years to figure out how to make homeopathy work. And that to me is really sad. You shouldn't be rushing around looking, at some guru homeopath to give you the answer. You should know how to analyze your case, and your patients will teach you the answers. You have to get it wrong to get it right. Don't be afraid. So conventional education traumatizes people. They're fearful. They're looking for somebody outside to validate them and tell them that it's all right. You can't possibly get it wrong because you'll fail your exam. But actually, what does an exam teach me? Nothing about the student. What teaches me about a competent practitioner is watching them go through the aha moment with their patient. I've got it. I understand cause, effects, and obstacles to cure. I've seen the obstacles in my patient's case, and I've spent my time, 4 appointments, removing those obstacles. Sometimes at the student clinic in London, it can take us a whole 2 years to remove the obstacles. But in that time, you see a person transforming from a tired, weak, prematurely old person. So it looks like they're youthing. Their confidence is coming back. They're finding their voice. They're saying no. They're getting divorced. They're getting remarried, or they've always wanted a child and suddenly they're pregnant again. I keep saying, we should promote this as, if you want to get pregnant, do the course. You'll be pregnant in no time at all. Why? Because people suddenly start removing obstacles. They start to remove them. And I'm always fascinated. So I'll give you something that was interesting to me. So I learned in a particular region in Portugal, a lot of women, particularly later mothers when they're in their late 30s, seem to have miscarriages. Now, that fascinated me because my patient had 3 miscarriages since she's got 2 children. She's had 3 miscarriages since she's been there. And then she's happened to say, but, a lot of other women, I've been talking to other women and they're saying the same thing. So I said to her, the first thing I said, it's a poison. You're all exposed to a poison. So we started talking. And then she said to me, in the winter, there's a lot of mold here. And I said, you know what? Mold produces a toxin and the liver's not coping it. And if you look at cicale, which is a mold for rye, it causes terminations. And people use it to bring on a late, if you're a late term, you can use cicale to get everything going. So I said to me, do you know what? Sounds to me that we've got black mold is our problem. And so I'm so excited. I think I've found my obstacle, my cause. And the obstacle is getting the nutrition in, making sure that she's well nourished, she's taking the right stuff. And now I can detox her from black mold. I mean, what system of medicine has that? You don't. Yeah.
Incredible.
It's amazing. And I'll find out all about this in about 6 months' time. She gets pregnant again.
I don't like telling people what they should and shouldn't eat because I don't like anybody telling me what I should and shouldn't eat. So for the past decade I've been in practice, I've always, because people will come in and say, oh, can you fix my constipation without making changes? Can you fix my eczema without changes? And at the start of my practice, straight out of college, I'm like, yeah, homeopathy can fix everything. Yeah, no worries. But I just really realized that there's some clients that I just do not get their tonsils down, and I do not get their constipation sorted, and I do not get their eczema sorted unless they remove the dairy. And so many people are so hesitant to remove dairy, but sometimes, you can save yourself hundreds of dollars of practitioner consultations by just cutting out the dairy. If you were suffering from constipation or enlarged tonsils or eczema, so many of these things. I mean, there's many obstacles to cure. Mold is actually a really big one here in Perth, which you wouldn't think because it's apparently the most sunshine hours of any city in the world. But the houses are very poorly built. So we have huge mold issues here. And it wasn't until I realized that I could serve my clients better. So yeah, knowing those obstacles to cure is really, really important.
And, if you're blindly focusing on the remedies and not understanding what's going on, you're not going to get the results. This is why I left practice. Okay. When I say, my receptionist said to me one day, she said to me, I don't know how you do it. And I said, what do you mean? She said, you came in at 8 a.m, you left at 8 p.m, you saw 17 people. How'd you do that? And I said, well, I'm just learning. I'm learning. I couldn't do it now, but I needed to do it. And within 7 years, I'd burnt myself out and I had to take a sabbatical. And whilst I was taking the sabbatical, that's when Robert appeared and said, do you want to buy my college? And I said, oh, okay, then. You go through the learning process. So what I've done with our training is I've cut out the here and there and the guesswork. And I've said, focus on case analysis because that's what worked for me. That worked for me. So let me show you what you need to do. And so we take you through the program of observation. Case analysis is so important. Learning the language of the body, never giving up. If a patient comes and you can't see why they've got those symptoms, think poison. There's something they're taking, whether it's mold that they're breathing in or something they're eating. Do the investigation. I had a lady with ulcerative colitis and she'd had it for years. She'd been on Pentasa, which was destroying her liver, etc., etc. And I said to her, listen, I can detox you from the drug. I can help you with nutrition. I can help you with homeopathic remedies. I know where this is coming from emotionally, but if you don't cut out dairy and gluten, so the biggest thing that destroys the gut is the casein in the milk. And the biggest thing that destroys the gut from wheat is the gluten. So she cut it out. She went to see her specialist. All the bleeding had stopped. We'd reduced her drug. In fact, we took her off the drug because she had no symptoms from it. The biggest change was coming off those two things. She saw the specialist and he was very pleased. Said, oh, because they do the endoscopy to have a look, to see what's going on in the large intestines. And everything was clear. All the polyps had gone. So with homeopathy, nutrition, cutting out stuff, it had gone. And it was like a miracle to this guy. And he said, oh, it's amazing. Good to see the drugs eventually started working. Mm-hmm. And she looked at him and she said, I've not been taking it. Oh, you've got to go back on the drug. There. And he said, well, so what have you been taking? She said to him, I just stopped eating, bread and drinking milk. And he said, oh, that doesn't make any difference. He just completely trashed it. And when she told me the story, I just laughed and laughed and laughed. And I just said to her, now you can see the dangers of an expert.
I don't understand that. If a client came to me and they had a chronic disease cured and they told me they drank 1 liter of cow's urine every day, I wouldn't poo-poo it. I would go and investigate it. Like, I'd go and find out what it, So I'm always staying open-minded. I'm always trying to have what's the best for my clients. So as a specialist, if people come to them, and I'm sure they hear this often, oh, I've made dietary changes. Oh, I've seen a homeopath. Instead of poo-pooing all these clients, go and find out about it. Go and see what it is that's happening that's healing your clients. I have to say a really big obstacle to cure, Ellen, which I don't know if it's as big a thing over there as it is here in Perth, is breast implants. And there's some really good Facebook groups on breast implant illness, disease. And I just thinking of this client that I saw religiously every 6 to 8 weeks. She came for a follow-up and she had pituitary tumors and liver tumors and these spots all over her body and chronic fatigue where she was sleeping 20 hours a day, all these different things. And I was quite naive to breast implant illness at the time. But we had a biomedical practitioner type person in the clinic as well. And so I said to this lady after 2 years, I was like, I don't know why you're coming back to me because clearly I'm not helping you. Like, go see this other lady and see if it's something she can do. And so afterwards, me and the other practitioner discussed, and she's like, Eugenia, it's her breast implants. I'm like, what? She's got breast implants? And it's something I never thought to ask people, but these days I always ask. And this woman was just like, she's had them in for 20 years. She's like, I'm never having them removed. And she's just stopped seeing me and this is the thing, right? I never judge people. And if you continue to take the contraceptive pill, even though it's destroying your hormones, I will not judge you and I will continue to support you. And I will just give you the homeopathic remedy made from the drug itself. And if you don't want to have your implants removed, that's totally fine. There's no judgment for me. I will just support you. I will just know that there's extra things that I need to help your body because it's under a lot of stress. Yeah. But I do think that's a really big obstacle to cure that I don't know if anybody else is as naive as me about it, but I just had no idea. And you go,
I know we see things like this in the student clinic. So we're very aware of these things being a problem. The other thing people don't know that's a problem that you may come across is, all the acrylic on the nails that people have. Very, very toxic, can cause arthritis in the finger joints. So if you're not looking and asking your patients, what is it that you're doing on a regular basis? The other thing you don't realize is all the cosmetics. So they use lead in cosmetics to keep the color or the cosmetic to hold the color. So your patients may be coming with symptoms that are related to lead poisoning, but you're not sure where that poisoning's coming. So we do a module, a lesson just on environmental toxicity. It has all these things in so that everybody knows what's going on. I can listen to a patient telling me symptoms and I know that they're on a drug. I know that it's this drug that's doing this because when we do the paper cases as part of the training, we always ask you to give the side effects of the drugs and what the drugs are mugging the body from so that you can see that. What's the difference between, what is the real patient and what is the imposed disease from the drug and how that drug is taking everything out of the body.
You've actually just reminded me of something that we have here. It's called Vitally, VITA.ly here in Australia. It's a wholesaler for various supplements, and you can go and sign up there and put in the drug that your client is on, and it will automatically tell you the nutrients that is depleted. So that's actually really good to know. And so then you can just give them that supplement. So if they need to stay on the drug, that's fine, but then you're supporting it naturopathically.
Yeah, you do. And you have to be aware that that's what's going on. And that's why you're not getting the results in your practice. But the way I look at it, you should be learning this from the get-go, not fumbling your way through it to find out 3 or 4 years later that all these patients, I remember thinking to myself, when I was on my learning journey, I'd give Nat Muir to women who'd been on the pill, but I didn't make the connection, and they would aggravate like hell. And I just didn't understand. It was like, why? Why do these women aggravate like hell? And, you suddenly start getting fearful about a remedy. But actually, that was the universe teaching me that when you're on the pill, it unbalances your sodium potassium levels. And the body's trying to tell you. I mean, this is why when you're on synthetic hormones, you get fluidy, don't you? And put on weight, etc., etc. But it's to do with what it's doing to the bioflora and the minerals in the body. So when you give Nat Muir, the body's wanting to adjust itself, it can't, because those resources aren't there. So it's just going to show you the problem. But if you blame the remedy, you learn nothing. If you look in the case, you'll find the answer.
Oh, that's gold. That is gold. And yeah, something else I was thinking, just as we're talking about obstacle secure, because I actually thought this could be quite an interesting conversation just in itself for people to kind of mentally have like a little, just tick through, okay, what sort of things are they doing? But smart meters is something that a lot of people don't pay enough attention to. And you so often hear of a smart meter just on the wall outside, the bedroom where the child is sleeping. And that's a really big one. People sleeping with their cell phones in the room. I had a lady the other day. She slept with her cell phone underneath her pillow while she was listening to stories to fall asleep with her baby next to her. I know, like, it's huge obstacles to cure. And it actually, I just think everybody knows what I know. And then I sometimes forget that some people are new to this journey. And I have to think of when I was new to this journey and I didn't know the basic things of how to empower myself, how to take care of myself. And so I kind of just have to think, oh, that's right. Some people don't know this stuff. This isn't their reality. This isn't the paradigm that they live in. So you have to be gentle and kind and basically start at the basics. And one of that is don't sleep with your cell phone in your bed at night. Turn the Wi-Fi off at night. Make sure there's not a smart meter on the outside of your bedroom door. And if you are renting, sometimes that can be trickier, but there are certain paints that you can use. You can paint it on the inside of the wall to help protect you. And yes, I think a lot of this insidious stuff, all the, EMS and things that we can't see is quite a scary maintaining cause.
Well, what I'll say to people is, look, don't be afraid, because fear just adds to your problem.
Yeah.
What you have to understand is this. The human body was designed to withstand quite a lot. And when you get the fundamental constitution back in alignment, it can deal with all of this itself. And you can help the body to withstand the bombardment of environmental toxicity and EMF radiation, because it is all around. The weaker you are, the more susceptible you are to the impact of it. One of the other things that people don't understand about toxins, whether it's electromagnetic radiation or the drugs you're taking or ingesting a heavy metal, when you do a lot of cases and you're looking at cause, effects and obstacles to cure, one of the things that will hit you as you're doing this is the effects of that toxin will reflect your mental, emotional issues. I want you to think about that. So when you're looking at a drug side effect, if you're susceptible to that effect because it reflects your mental, emotional issues, you will experience that drug side effect. So I'll
I'm
give
just
you
trying to think. Oh, thanks. I was just going to say.
Okay. We had a patient, this was in Ghana, and I love Ghana because everything's really clear, who came about Parkinson's. He'd been on high blood pressure medication for 15 years. I knew that one of the side effects of this blood pressure medication was Parkinson type symptoms. So I asked him, tell me, what is stopping you from walking forward in your life? And I was shocked when he told me. And this trauma left him feeling guilty and unable. He said he's been unable to move forward in his life. And it was guilt. Guilt was the thing that was stopping him from moving forward in his life. And so I looked at him and I looked at the side effects of the drug. And if you read through it, it says it's a rare symptom. The Parkinson's symptom is a rare symptom. Now, why I made that connection, because I'd seen it before with drug side effects, that when people take certain drugs, the side effect will usually affect their issue. And I had another lady, again, diagnosed with Parkinson's on the same drug. Her son was autistic and her husband left her to look after the child by herself. She was so angry, she couldn't let that go. And therefore, she never moved forwards in her life and totally controlled her autistic son in everything that he did, because she was wanting to make sure everything was always right. But that stopped her from moving forward. She was on this drug. She was diagnosed with Parkinson's. So I'd seen it before. So once you start doing cause effects and looking at drug side effects, looking at patients, looking at their mental, emotional traumas that stop them, usually the effect of the drug will show up and it will reflect where they're at on a mental, emotional level. Isn't that interesting?
That is very interesting because there is such a huge list of side effects with any drug so that your body would express that particular side effect. Never thought about it that way. You're really shifting my train of thought tonight, Ellen. I really like it. You're making me see things in a different way. Do you naturally have this way of thinking this way, or where do you think that came from? Because right from the beginning, after you graduated, you said that you were doing things a bit differently to everyone else and you were really busy right from the beginning. Where did you learn this ability from to kind of think outside the box like this?
Well, I think I have my father to thank. My father was South African and he left South Africa and he met my mother. He was a mining engineer and he met my mother in Ghana and he married her. She was black, he was white. My father did not give a monkey's hoot what anybody thought about him or what he did. He never complied to the colonialist mentality that you shouldn't fraternize with the natives, etc., etc. He just didn't care. He fell in love with her. He loved her. He married her. And when Ghana became independent and they were sending all the South Africans back to South Africa because of apartheid, my father changed his nationality to Ghanaian.
Wow. You're giving me goosebumps now.
Yeah. So that he could be with us and make sure that we grew up. And it was a very funny upbringing. My father he had two rules. The one was you were at lunch, you had lunch at 12 and you had dinner at 6. What you did in between that, he left up to you. And if you had a problem, he would say to you, you figure that one out.
That's interesting.
He never told us what to do. Yeah, he never told us what to do. He never criticized us, but he would allow us to fall in to, make mistakes and try and work it out. He left us alone. And my mother did the same. They just left us alone. I said to my brother one day, I said, our parents could have beamed down from outer space for all I care, because they didn't get involved in our day-to-day life, which then meant that I was brought up with thinking for myself and finding my own resources. So if I had a problem, I didn't look for somebody outside to tell me the answers. I went away and would think about the problem over and over again until I had some idea of what was going on. And that's what happened with patients. I would think, why are you doing this? This isn't normal. And so I tried to work it out. And when I wrote the course was to help other people to think for themselves. So we don't tell our students what to do. We give them the lessons. They're there. They can refer to it. But if they want to do something completely different, I just say, oh, that'll be an interesting experience. And my students have been my fantastic teachers because I'm very into using an LM potency. And one of my students said to me, couldn't you do your detox in an LM potency and combine that? And I thought, wow, that's a really good idea. So the next patients I had come in, I put them on a detox, Nux Carc, sepia for hormonal stuff, and watched. The patient came back and everything cleared up really quickly. And it unsuppressed her, and we had the mental, emotionals and core issues come to the surface really quickly. So I found that the LMs would unravel the case very, very quickly. But it was the student who got me thinking. And because I don't care what people think about me and what I do as a homeopath, I'm willing to do it. So when I was in clinic in Ghana, we had a homeopath there, very, very classical. And I saw that the etiology for the patient's angina came out of a shock. Everybody had tried all these remedies, okay? They'd all given him all sorts of remedies. He kept coming back, bless him. And then I pulled the etiology out of him. And I thought, well, it's aconite. Okay, aconite doesn't have any of the symptoms that he had. So, but anyway, I got it. I thought, that's aconite. This homeopath said to me, "Oh, you're going to kill the patient if you give it in an LM potency." Yeah. I just said to him, "Do you know what you can do?" And then I went, and according to them, "Oh, a machine doesn't work. Yeah, it doesn't work." Okay, so we made aconite LM1
On the machine, on the radionic.
on the machine,
Wow.
on the radionics, and I left. I came back a year later, and I said to the clinic manager, "What happened to that patient with the angina?" He said, "We gave him one drop. He took one drop of aconite LM1 and all his symptoms disappeared." I said, "What?" His symptoms disappeared. He'd had them for 20 years. He'd tried herbalists. He'd been coming to the clinic for years. And the thing that got me thinking it was a trauma was they told me that the remedy that seemed to work the most was arnica. So when I dug the etiology out of him, I saw it was a shock that he thought he was going to die. I thought, I've nailed you. I've got what your heart's telling me. And one drop, aconite, LM1, completely cured.
Amazing.
And so, if I listen to all these people and their fears, good for you. You do your fear, enjoy. You know what? I've got business to do, and that is helping people to find balance. It's not me that does it. I'm just a good detective and a guide. The remedy stimulates that healing process. The patient is the most amazing healer on the planet. And that's my issue with this whole thing about placebo. It's just a placebo effect, homeopathy. Well, if a placebo is that good, why do we have a chemical industry poisoning people when the human mind can heal itself that easily?
Amen.
You've just proved the point. Proved the point that we're the healers. That's what placebo is telling us. We are the healer. We don't need you. But they've turned it upside down. And because people don't understand the language of the body, they've fallen into that fear state where you can't heal yourself when you're afraid. So as a practitioner, you need to guide your patient with confidence, know what you're doing. And when you do that, you're giving them the permission to take responsibility and heal themselves. That's where I come from.
Oh, Ellen, you are so entertaining to listen to. If your lectures are half as good, then your students are in for a treat. Can you please tell our listeners, how they can get hold of you, where they can sign up, when are your intakes? Is it only online? Is it also in person?
We're only online, and you can find us on thecph.co.uk. So you just have to put that in. It's www.thecph.co.uk, and you'll find us online. You can register for a pack, whether you are a practitioner. So if you're a practitioner, you're a chiropractor, you want to add homeopathy to your training, you can do our postgraduate training. If you're an undergraduate, you don't know any single thing about healthcare, anatomy and physiology. And that's the most amazing thing about anatomy and physiology. It's fun. It interrelates with the homeopathy. It's not this thing that you have to do. It's this thing that you want to do because you want to learn about the body, and you can relate that to the 5 elements. You can see how the body works. So that's for the undergraduates. You don't have to know a thing. We will walk you through so that you become a master detective of cause, effects, and obstacles to cure. You will get the practice that you want. You don't have to rush around people are going to hate me for this, to this seminar and that seminar, and with the forlorn hope. I'm saying this because that's what I did at first, with the forlorn hope that somebody might be able to help you to get the results. Your patients can get those results. But nobody has told you about the obstacles to cure. No one's told you that the real simulum is the etiology. That is the simulum. Find the cause, find the remedy. And I've had that, in student clinics, and we've had cases where the patients had lichen planus from having a car accident. And the students have said to me, but that remedy has no symptoms of lichen planus. It's arnica. She was shocked. She thought she was okay. Let's try that first. And then we can look at the minutiae of lichen planus. Now off they go. Patient comes back. Oh, 70% improvement in lichen planus on arnica 12C twice a day for a month. That's because you're taking her out of shock and the body's doing the business of rebalancing itself. How simple is that?
Healing shouldn't be complicated. And can people sign, do you have an intake only at specific times of the year or all throughout the year?
No, you can join any time you like. At the moment, if you join before the end of March, you get a 5% discount before all the fees go up in April.
This is going out on 29th of April. So sorry to everyone. I've already got all the other skills.
You've got all the other skills. I'll talk to Som and say that if you listened to the podcast on the 29th, then you want to, poke at us for a discount because I said so on the thing, and it doesn't come out to the 29th. Then
awesome.
Then let me talk to him about it. So
amazing, cool. That's lucky for our homies. And any final message that you want to leave us with, Ellen?
The most important thing is to trust yourself. The answers for everything lie inside you. The patient has the skill set to heal themselves. And if you don't know how to analyze the case, then find out how you learn to analyze the case and support your patient. So even if you're a practicing practitioner and you listen to me and you think, you know what, I could improve what I'm doing, you can do our postgraduate training. It will blow your mind. So you don't just have to be an osteopath or a chiropractor or a nurse or a doctor, etc. You can be a homeopath and feel that you're stuck in a rut. And I remember a graduate of ours who's very, very busy. I was doing a talk and she came up to me and she said to me, whoa, you've given me so much hope. She said, I've tried homeopathy and I've tried on patients and I don't seem to be getting anywhere. And I said, why don't you come and do our course? She did our course. Now she is one of the busiest homeopaths in the area that she practices in.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for all the mind bombs that you dropped today, and just really, really appreciate this lovely paradigm shift and all these new ideas that you've given me. So thank you so much. I really appreciate it. It was lovely to connect with you.
It was wonderful. I really had fun talking to you about what we do at CPH. So thank you very, very much, Eugenie.
Pleasure.